Hey sweeties, welcome back to the channel. If you thought part 1 was intense, you haven't seen anything yet, because in this next round, we're diving even deeper into the couples who didn't just steal the scene, they owned the entire narrative. These are the duos who turned side glances into symphonies, casual touches into full-blown emotional breakdowns, and every kiss into a plot twist. They blurred the line between acting and reality, making us question if we were even watching fiction anymore. Some of these couples came out of nowhere. No one expected their chemistry to hit that hard. Others, we had high hopes, but what they delivered went beyond anything we could have imagined. We're talking tear-stained pillowcases, endless rewatches, and fan theories that kept us up at 2 a.m. This list is all about the slow burns that left us aching, the chaotic energy that made us laugh through the heartbreak, and the raw, soul-shaking performances that ripped us apart in the best way possible. So grab your comfort snack, hug your emotional support plushie, because these next couples, they didn't just eat. They left nothing but shattered hearts and iconic scenes in their wake. Welcome to part 2 of BL couples who ate up every scene. Let's pick up where the heartbreak and the magic left off. Maxi Bas Forever You, a bittersweet bloom of first love. Maxi Ratcheta and Bas Hatsani's pairing in Forever You, specifically within their poignant segment of the Forever You project, was nothing short of a revelation. In a series that wove together multiple stories of love and heartbreak, theirs stood out like a quiet, golden sunrise, warm, tender, and unexpectedly moving. From the moment their characters met, something delicate and beautiful began to unfurl on screen. Their early scenes were laced with an enchanting awkwardness, soft glances that lingered too long, smiles that betrayed hidden affection, fingers brushing briefly yet reverently, as if afraid to shatter the moment. There was a purity to their chemistry, a kind of vulnerable tension that reminded viewers of the butterflies of a first crush, the kind that leaves you breathless for reasons you can't explain. What made Maxi and Bas so compelling wasn't just the story, but the way they lived in each moment. Maxi brought a calm, grounded sensitivity to his character, while Bas countered with a gentle brightness, his every expression laced with a quiet yearning. Together, they created a relationship that felt achingly real, tender in its silence, and heart-stopping in its honesty. When their characters began to open up, speaking not just with words, but through hesitant touches and heartfelt silences, those scenes felt like emotional gut punches. They didn't need dramatic declarations. A glance across a hallway, a quiet moment under a tree, or a softly spoken sentence held more emotional weight than entire monologues. Their intimacy was intimate in the truest sense, shared vulnerability, slow-building trust, and the kind of affection that creeps up gently but stays with you long after. One particular scene, where one character finally admits his feelings with trembling vulnerability while the other listens with wide, tear-brimming eyes, was a standout moment of the entire project. It wasn't explosive. It was soft, quiet, real, and it hit harder for it. Maxi and Bas' segment became the emotional heart of Forever You. At a time when the series risked becoming fragmented across multiple narratives, their story grounded it with a timeless message that the purest love is often the one spoken in whispers, nurtured in silences, and sealed with a soft smile. Fans didn't just root for their characters, they ached for them. Their connection felt less like acting and more like a lived-in memory, something pulled from a real, untouched corner of their hearts. They didn't just portray a love story, they invited us to remember our own. Their contribution to Forever You didn't just fill a narrative slot, it elevated the series. It reminded viewers of the quiet, tender beginnings of love, the kind that lingers long after the screen fades to black. Up next, first Kanafan and Counting Thanawat Bison and Kant. From the Heart Killers, emotional depth, intensity, and memorable tragedy-tinged romance. In Heart Killers, First and Kautung are not just portraying lovers. They are embodying haunted souls caught in a spiraling storm of crime, betrayal, and aching memory. As Bison and Kant, their characters aren't schoolboys discovering love. They are men weighed down by choices, scars, and secrets. The emotional gravity of their pairing lies in its quiet devastation. Every scene between them feels like a collision of two lives that were once beautifully intertwined, now unraveling under the weight of mistrust and longing. First's portrayal of Bison is steeped in sorrow and stoic pain, his eyes often speaking louder than his words, filled with the burden of a past he can't forget and a future he's too afraid to hope for. Kaotung's Kant, on the other hand, is all emotional fragility beneath a hardened shell, his mission to infiltrate Bison's world clashing violently with the remnants of a love he thought he had buried. One of the most gut-wrenching moments comes during a rain-drenched confrontation, where Kant demands answers from Bison, not as a cop, but as a man who once gave his heart to him. Bison, soaked and trembling, looks back with a haunted softness, whispering, "If I tell you the truth, will you still be the one holding the gun?" In that moment, everything, desire, regret, hope, betrayal, sits between them like a live wire. Their chemistry is electric, but not in the playful, flirty way typical of many BL couples. It's charged with fear, hunger and restraint. Every touch is hesitant, every gaze loaded with what they can't say. First and cow make even the smallest gestures. A brush of a hand, the pause before a kiss, feel like life or death decisions. That's how high the stakes are in Heart Killers. What elevates this pairing is how real it feels. There's no melodrama for the sake of spectacle. Instead, there's quiet pain, whispered apologies, and lingering looks that bleed with history. They don't scream their love. They carry it like a wound, deep and permanent. You believe they've loved before. You believe they might still. Their performances elevate the entire series. In a show full of plot twists and gritty action, they serve as the aching, emotional heartbeat. First brings a grounded intensity that anchors every scene, while Chaotum's eyes flicker with too many emotions to count. Rage, guilt, yearning, and love. Together, they transform a crime thriller into a tragic romance you can't look away from. By the end, when Kent must choose between his badge and Bison, the heartbreak is not in the dramatic final decision, but in the trembling silence before it. The show leaves you wondering, was justice ever worth more than love? William and Est. At thaibl, drawing from the essence of standout BL dynamics and the kind of chemistry that leaves an unforgettable impact. William and Est. Raw, unfiltered, devastatingly magnetic. William and Est didn't just play lovers. They became them. Even without a massive promotional push, or endless behind-the-scenes footage, their presence in thaibl radiated with an urgency that made it impossible to look away. It wasn't just acting. It was immersion. The kind that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. From the very first episode, there was an undercurrent of tension, not loud or performative, but simmering beneath every glance, every breath. Their characters didn't fall in love easily. This was a slow, reluctant, soul-bearing burn, the kind that feels like falling with your eyes wide open, knowing it might break you, but doing it anyway. And when it finally did ignite, it wasn't just romantic. It was devastating. Their chemistry wasn't about perfect timing or dramatic flourishes, it was about truth. About two souls clashing, bleeding, healing, and sometimes doing all three at once. There were moments so silent they screamed. Imagine a scene. They're standing inches apart in a dimly lit room, the air thick with everything they've never said. One of them is trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of finally being seen. The other reaches out, hesitates, then gently tucks a strand of hair behind the other's ear. No music, just the sound of breathing, eyes locked, time suspended. That's William and Est. That's thaibl. Their emotional confrontations cut deep, not just because of the script, but because William and Est brought history into every word. It felt like their characters had lived lifetimes before that moment. When they cried, it wasn't a single tear and a sigh. It was a breakdown, a shattering, the kind of scene that feels almost too real, like you've stumbled upon something private. And when they smiled, tentatively, shyly, like it might all be too good to be true, it felt like sunlight after years of cold. The longing between them wasn't flashy or loud. It was in the eyes. William's barely concealed yearning in the way he'd glance away the moment Est looked at him. Est's trembling hands as he tried to stay composed while every fiber of his being begged to be touched, held, chosen. It was in their body language, shoulders that turned toward each other even in group scenes, the magnetic pull of closeness that defied blocking directions. They carried thaibl on their backs, not through spectacle, but through emotional weight. Even when the writing wavered or the pacing stalled, their connection anchored the story. They made it about more than romance. It became a story about vulnerability, about healing, about the terrifying act of being known. William and Est didn't just act their roles. They felt them, bled for them, and the audience felt every beat of it. Moving on to Bas and Noel in Boy Next World. Bas and Noel, portraying Cirrus and Fagun, didn't just act in a fantasy BL series. They anchored an emotionally intricate journey that dared to blend the surrealism of parallel worlds with the raw tenderness of a slowly blossoming love. At its core, Boy Next World was about destiny, memory, and emotional rebirth. And it thrived because Bas and Noel infused every moment with truth. Their chemistry didn't shout, it whispered, it lingered, and it burned slowly. A simmering intensity beneath delicate restraint. Cirrus, played by Bas, was sculpted as an ice prince, aloof and emotionally armored, weighed down by secrets stitched into the fabric of another world. But this wasn't just a trope. It became something tragic, real, and poignant in Bas's hands. His coldness wasn't arrogance, but a form of mourning. You saw it in the stillness of his gaze, the way he avoided touch, how his body remained rigid even in silence. Every moment with Fagun chipped away at that frost. And the thaw was mesmerizing. Noel's Fagun, in contrast, radiated sincerity and warmth, his innocence never naive but earnest, like someone learning to read the emotional echoes of a life he once lived but had long forgotten. Noel gave Fagun a softness that made his eventual heartbreak feel devastating. Because it wasn't just a character discovering love, but rediscovering a piece of his soul across universes. And then came the moments. The unforgettable scene where Cyrus finally allows himself to be vulnerable, whispering truths from a life Vagun doesn't yet remember. His voice trembles, eyes glistening, as he confesses things no one should have to repeat. Losses he's already endured once, now threatened again. You watch Vagun process this, torn between confusion and a deep, aching familiarity, and you believe it. Because Bas and Noel make it hurt in all the right ways. The scene with the disappearing scar is a cinematic punch to the gut. As Vagun stares in disbelief at the fading mark, a physical sign of a bond stretching across lifetimes. You can feel the gravity in the room shift. Noel's eyes fill with tears not from fear, but from a dawning realization that love doesn't just transcend space. It rewrites reality, and Bas, standing there like he's watching a miracle he never thought he deserved, delivers one of his most quietly devastating performances to date. They don't need words. The silence screams. Elevation of the series. Bas and Noel didn't just bring the fantasy to life. They grounded it in emotional authenticity. Their portrayals gave the high-concept plot a soul. The show's central themes, destiny, parallel pain, reincarnated love, could have easily veered into melodrama, but their chemistry made it undeniably human. Every brush of fingers, every look held too long, every moment of confused recognition. They turned the metaphysical into something heartbreakingly intimate. Their dynamic wasn't built on grand romantic gestures. It was built on the slow erosion of fear, on trust earned, and on a love that fought through dimensions to be remembered. When the fantasy faded, what remained was them. Two people who never stopped choosing each other, even when the universe made them forget. Om Nanon as Pat and Pran from Bad Buddy. While Bad Buddy technically premiered in late 2021, its emotional tremors continue to ripple through the BL landscape years later. To talk about iconic BL couples without mentioning Om and Nanon is to overlook a seismic shift in the genre. As Pat and Pran, they didn't just play lovers. They embodied them, crafting a relationship so authentic, so palpably charged with love, longing, and rebellion, that it continues to redefine what BL storytelling can be. Legendary chemistry and intimacy beyond words. Om and Nanon's chemistry is not the kind you see. It's a kind you feel. It lingers like static in the air, heavy and electric. From the very first episode, their interactions, charged with childhood rivalry, unsaid admiration, and barely suppressed yearning, set the screen ablaze. Every glance was loaded, every touch laced with meaning. There was a breathtaking precision to their performances. The way Pat would look at Pran with eyes that screamed desire and mischief, while Pran's gaze, always more guarded, spoke volumes of buried love, fear, and reluctant surrender. The moment their hands first intertwine under a table, a seemingly innocent act, is delivered with such trembling restraint it practically aches. It's not just fingers touching. It's two souls finally breaking free from years of repression and inherited hatred. And the balcony scenes, they are the soul of Bad Buddy. Quiet sanctuaries suspended above a world that refuses to let them be. Here, laughter and silence exist side by side, and their love unfolds in whispers and glances under starlit skies. Angst, passion, and the was it a dream kiss. One of the series' most unforgettable moments is when Pat and Pran, overwhelmed by the emotional weight of hiding, fighting, and longing, finally share a kiss that is raw, desperate, and drenched in history. It's not romanticized. It's messy. It's real. It's a collision of emotion rather than a simple display of affection. And then comes the morning after. Pran waking up with a hint of hope and confusion, the ambiguity of the night hanging in the air like smoke. Was it real? Was it just a dream? That single line shattered fans because it mirrored our deepest fear that something so intense, so tender, could disappear like it never happened. Om and Nanon didn't act the scene. They lived it. The pain in their eyes, the vulnerability in their voices, the slight tremble in their lips. It felt like watching two real people fall apart and try to rebuild something fragile and sacred. That emotional depth is rare, and they tapped into it with a fearlessness that left audiences wrecked. Transformative performances and genre-shifting impact. What Bad Buddy achieved would have been impossible without the raw artistry of Om and Nanon. They navigated the full emotional spectrum, from absurd comedic timing during chaotic friend group battles, to devastating vulnerability during tearful confrontations about their future. They trusted each other, and that trust created a safety net for them to go deeper, push harder, and risk more. Their portrayal turned Pat and Pran into more than a couple. They became symbols of rebellion, of hope, of love that refuses to be quiet. Om and Nanon became a gold standard in BL storytelling not just because of their acting, but because they felt like two people in love. You weren't just watching their story. You were living it with them. Even years later, their legacy is everywhere in the way new series structure romantic tension, in how directors film longing stares, in how actors approach vulnerability. Om and Nanon didn't just star in a BL series. They redefined it. If Bad Buddy was a storm, Om and Nanon were its lightning. Blinding, wild, unforgettable. And the sky has never quite been the same since. And finally, we've arrived at number 1. Let's not even pretend this was a hard choice. Jin and Aiken from Top Form, Smart and Boom weren't just acting. They are embodying something larger than the roles they were cast in. What they're doing on screen is so powerful, so visceral, so real, that calling it chemistry almost feels like an insult. This isn't just about two actors performing well together. This is alchemy. It's electricity and gravity and unspoken truths all wrapped into one. They don't just connect, they collide, with a force that feels destined and dangerous all at once. Every glance, every breath, every shift of eye contact between Aiken and Jin is laced with tension so thick it practically hums off the screen. You don't just see their chemistry, you feel it in your chest, in the silence between their lines, in the lingering looks that stretch 1 second too long. From the very first episode, Smart and Boom plant the seeds of something simmering. A quiet storm. Jin is guarded, meticulous, and wounded in ways he doesn't know how to voice. Aiken, with that dangerously magnetic confidence and intuitive empathy, chips away at Jin's defenses without even realizing it at first. Their scenes aren't scripted, they're experienced. They feel like stolen moments from a real love story happening just beneath the surface of the narrative. And then there's that one unforgettable early episode, the scene that lit the fandom ablaze. Jin needs to cry for the camera, but he can't. He's stuck. He's too in his head, too afraid of revealing what's buried deep. And then Aiken steps in, gently, intimately. He doesn't tell Jin to feel. He guides him there. His voice is low, calm, steady, but his eyes are burning. And slowly, Jin lets go. The tears fall, and for a split second, it's no longer a scene in a show. It's two souls exposing themselves to each other. The moment isn't perfect. There's a jarring CGI teardrop, but even that can't dim what Smart and Boom conjure in that frame. What's astonishing isn't just the acting. It's the way Boom's presence grounds the scene, and how Smart lets Jin breathe through the rawness. It's the tenderness, the ache, the trust. That's what makes it unforgettable. And let's talk about the meta layer, because Top Form doesn't shy away from it. Jin and Aiken are actors, acting in a story within a story. But what Boom and Smart do is blur that line between fiction and reality until you're no longer sure where the performance ends and something real begins. They use those in-show acting scenes to inject a deeper layer of vulnerability and longing. Aiken helping Jin rehearse a scene shouldn't be romantic. And yet, suddenly, the air is thick with unsaid emotions. It's in the micro-expressions. The breath caught in Jin's throat. The flicker of pain in Aiken's eyes. The way their hands almost touch but don't. That is what makes Smart and Boom's portrayal so compelling. Every scene is layered. Every moment is a reveal. Boom, in particular, delivers a performance that doesn't just elevate Top Form. It transcends it. He is charismatic and grounded, pulling the viewer into every moment with an almost magnetic pull. He walks a fine line between Aiken's professional mask and his personal vulnerability, and he does it so naturally you forget he's acting. Meanwhile, Smart's portrayal of Jin's emotional arc is nothing short of devastating. You watch Jin fall, slowly, unwillingly, beautifully, and you feel every second of it. The show itself is strong, yes. The writing is layered, the direction bold. But without these two, it would be good. With them, it becomes unforgettable. Smart and Boom as Jin and Aiken aren't just the best couple of the year. They're a benchmark, a reminder of what BL can be when two actors step into their roles so completely, so fearlessly, that they blur the lines between character and truth. They didn't just perform a love story, they lived it, and we're lucky we got to witness it. And there you have it, sweeties. The final wave of BL couples who left us breathless, broken, and begging for more. These weren't just performances. They were experiences. They reminded us that BL isn't just about romance. It's about storytelling, vulnerability, tension, healing, and sometimes, total chaos. Beautiful, soul-crushing chaos. Whether they made us laugh with their ridiculous flirting, sob uncontrollably through their breakups, or sit in stunned silence after a kiss that changed everything, these couples imprinted on us. They're the reason we rewatch entire episodes for one glance, one line, one tear. And what makes it even more powerful? It's not just the scripts or the cinematography, it's the actors, who threw themselves into these roles and made us feel. They brought depth, nuance, and undeniable chemistry that made their love stories impossible to forget. So to every fan still haunted by a single scene, still quoting that line, still not over that moment, you're not alone. We're all here, carrying these stories with us. If you felt seen, felt moved, or fell in love all over again, drop your favorite scene-stealing couple below. Let's celebrate the ones who didn't just play their roles, they became them. Until the next wave of BL magic hits, stay dramatic, stay emotional, and never settle for chemistry that doesn't set the screen on fire. See you in the next video.